Hi everyone, welcome back. In this video, I will be reacting to a recipe about gyros. The recipe is by no other than Joshua Weissman. So, without further ado, let's start this, shall we? The title of Joshua's video is the $2 gyros. I'm really surprised by that. Let's see what he has ahead for us.
It's hard to come by great Greek food, and you're paying for this when you could be paying this. That is but cheaper.
Ooh, those are nice graphics. That B-roll though. Looks good.
So today we're making Greek gyros.
But you should pronounce it as gyros. Imagine it with a Y and double E. But he was pretty close, so I'm gonna give him that.
For a very cheap price of $2. And guess what? You too can make gyros with minimal equipment.
Minimal equipment. I wanna see how he's gonna pull this off.
You don't need all the fancy spindles and this and that. Sure, it's nice to have. You can do this with a basic oven, some skewers. Oh, but Josh, you're gonna use the little baking steel for the pita.
Okay.
Listen, pita, just put a baking sheet in the oven and let it get hot in the same way you would a baking steel and it would work.
That's why I love Joshua. He's just like, you don't need a baking steel. You can use your baking sheet. And you know, as a home cook, I really appreciate that.
So with all that being said, let's make this, shall we? Okay, we got gyros. Gyros are simple. Pita, meat, tzatziki, maybe some other fun accoutrement, but that's really it. What makes it good is giving a to use proper technique. I cannot stress this enough. And I know I always like to make my own bread, and people are like, oh, look at Josh being so cute. Listen, most store-bought pita is so trash. Its shape is better suited to be a frisbee than anything else.
Joshua is right by saying that most store-bought pita is like a frisbee. But here in Cyprus, and I think even in Greece, there are some good brands. And even if you get a stale supermarket pita, you can either spray it with a little bit of water before throwing it in the oven for a couple of minutes, or with a kitchen brush, dab it with a bit of olive oil and some garlic, and zhuzh it up on a pan, and you will be able to revive your pita into a proper receptacle for your meats.
So making it yourself will present thousands of miles worth of a difference, and it's super easy. 2 cups or 487 grams of lukewarm water in a container, then whisk in 1 tablespoon or 14 grams of instant yeast, followed by 1.5 tablespoons or 18 grams of granulated sugar. Whisk till dissolved, then separately in a large bowl add 5 cups or 750 grams of bread flour and 1 tablespoon or 15 grams of fine sea salt. Mix together till combined, pour your yeasty juices into your flour mixture, stir by hand until you get a shaggy dough, then knead for 3 to 4 minutes or until you get a smooth and dough. Cover with plastic wrap and rise at room temp for 1 hour or in the fridge overnight if you want to make it ahead. Look at you planning ahead.
This is one of the reasons that sometimes Joshua's recipes are a bit too extra. I think it's all fine and dandy to make your own pita, but to have to wait for 1 hour or overnight for your pita to rise, I think it adds significant amount of time to the overall cooking experience. But as I said earlier, you can just zhuzh up a couple of pita that you've gotten from the supermarket earlier and dramatically reduce the time that you're cooking.
That's a nice little gold star from Papa. 30 minutes before baking, either using an inverted baking sheet or a baking steel, place that into the middle of your oven, preheat to 475 Fahrenheit for 30 minutes, and then punch your dough down. Split into 8 pieces around 150 grams each, form each piece into a doit ball. Cover with a damp towel or greased plastic wrap and rest for 15 minutes. Then just take each ball and roll them into discs around 7 to 8 inches wide, then one at a time, open your oven up and carefully slide a disc into your oven using a floured pizza peel or a cutting board. Close and bake for 1 to 2 minutes or until it begins to puff nicely. Flip it over.
He's really treating those pita like separate pizzas though. I love how they look like. They are really round and big and they are puffy. They look really tasty.
And cook for 1 to 2 more minutes. Then immediately remove, place it in a towel to keep it from drying out, and repeat with the rest. Next up, Papa's big meat. Oh Josh, but cheaper, how can you make gyro meat without a spindle? Listen, imagine a life where instead of looking for problems, you look for solutions. So first you'll need 3 pounds or 1.3 kilograms of boneless pork Boston butt. Cut that roughly into half-inch slices. It does help to freeze this for about an hour before slicing.
That looks like a great solution, I must say. And that is correct. Most Cypriots and Greek people love eating pork gyros and not lamb or chicken. We do eat those, but not as often. So, Josh, you are getting some more points for authenticity.
Now once all that's sliced, let's make a basic spice mix consisting of 1 tablespoon or 3 grams of dried oregano, 1 tablespoon or 9 grams of paprika.
Maybe paprika is traditional in Greece, I'm not sure. But I think it doesn't belong in gyros. It brings a different flavor profile. But that's just me.
2 teaspoons or 6 grams of fresh cracked black pepper, 1 tablespoon or 9 grams of kosher salt, 1 tablespoon or 3 grams of finely chopped rosemary.
Rosemary too, I'm not sure. I think it's gonna be quite overpowering.
Mix till combined, then add 5 cloves of garlic, very finely chopped. Mix together one more time, and stir in 2 tablespoons or 30 grams of vegetable oil until you...
Joshua, vegetable oil. Are you being serious? Olive oil. That's the only oil we use. Come on. That's a rookie mistake. I'm giving you one warning.
Get a nice paste. Rub your meat off with all your seasoning paste. Then once fully coated, get yourself long skewers, at least 8 to 10 inches long. Optionally, you could stab them into an apple or an onion. Then one slice at a time. Stab and stack your meat onto the skewers, stacking all the way up until you have a glorious meat tower. Pop that bad boy onto a foil-lined baking sheet, ideally with a wire rack set on top if you have one, and roast in an oven.
I think this whole method with the 3 skewers, on the one hand, yes, it kind of gives you the gyros experience, but at the same time, only the exterior of the meat gets browning. What I would do, I would just disperse the gyro meat as thinly as he cut it onto the baking tray, and then put them in a preheated oven under the broiler. Since it's so thin, I think it will be thoroughly cooked, and you will have a lot of char throughout. So you won't have just the exterior that gets the char. That's just my opinion.
That's been preheated to 400 Fahrenheit, rotating often for about 45 minutes or until...
So for 45 minutes, this is taking way too long for something that is considered like a fast food. I think spreading the meat equally on the tray would save you quite a lot of time.
Cooked to an internal temp of 155 to 160 Fahrenheit and beautifully brown and lightly charred in little spots. Then remove and let it rest for 15 minutes. Now this will be sliced thinly and beautifully, but only when you're about to serve. Do not slice the meat and let it sit to dry out like it's in the Mojave Desert. Okay, we're not making jerky. Next, we're gonna make our toppings. What comes after Papa's big meat? Papa's white sauce. Medium-sized bowl. Start with 2 cups or 450 grams of full-fat Greek yogurt. That's full fat. Half of a seedless English cucumber. Great.
Yeah, I wouldn't use an English cucumber because they have way too much moisture. If I were going to use an English cucumber, I would remove the seeds and then dry it completely with paper towels.
Of a seedless English cucumber, grated, which will then be lightly salted, tossed, and squeezed of its excess moisture. Once it's given up a good amount of its liquid, you can...
I stand corrected. I think I would still pat it with some paper towels though.
And then add it to your yogurt along with a quarter cup or 15 grams of very finely chopped parsley.
I can't stand seeing parsley in tzatziki. Either you put dill or you put mint. One of these two are acceptable. I don't think any other green leaf belongs in tzatziki. Again,
Strike two.
Josh.
Salt and pepper to taste, 3 cloves of garlic grated, and 2 tablespoons or 18 grams of extra virgin olive oil. And you have my big, thick tzatziki. Moving on, half a red onion, sliced as thinly as you can. Mandolin not mandatory, but helpful. Pop those into a small bowl, cover with a wire rack, and wash and soak for about 30 seconds. Drain the water, and you have raw onion. So good. While raw, you'll be spanking yourself.
I have to applaud Joshua for washing his onion and then soaking it, because this way you remove most of the aromatic compounds that make the onion hard to eat, and they just leave the pleasant sweet notes in onion. Well done, Josh.
Wondering why you ever cooked it. For tomatoes, you'll just need 2 Roma tomatoes, sliced moderately thin, and salted just before serving. Now, albeit optional, this is probably my most favorite topping of all time, a humble French fry. Cut 2 russet potatoes into matchsticks, pop into a bowl, generously season with salt, cover with water, and let that soak for 15 minutes. Drain the water, dry the potatoes off with paper towels, get yourself a pot filled halfway with vegetable oil, so about 2 quarts, heat to 325 Fahrenheit, fry your potatoes in batch.
He's even making the French fries from scratch. I think, again, you are adding way too much cook time to this, and I think it's probably cheaper to get the pre-cut and already fried chips that you can throw in the oven for like 15 minutes and they can cook while you are doing some prep or something.
Which is about 1 to 2 minutes, or until just barely cooked through. Remove from the oil and drain, then increase the heat to 375 Fahrenheit, and yet again, in batches, fry your potatoes, and this time until they get a beautifully crispy golden brown crust around the potato. Remove from the oil and drain.
I appreciate that he double fries the French fries because they are quite crispy. If you do visit Cyprus or Greece, don't be surprised though if you get a soggy potato. Some people really hate it, but since that's how most people fry here in the Greek-speaking world, I like it. It reminds me of childhood.
Remember, always immediately hit generously with salt while it's still hot and fresh. But Josh, what happens if you let them sit too long? Well, the salt will bounce right off them, brothers. Now the time for assembly has come. Big boy pita down. I mean, wow, these things are fat, and there ain't no problem with that. You could totally cut each ball in half when making the dough, by the way, and get more pita that's moderately sized. Add a nice generous pile.
Oh, come on, Josh.
You don't put the meat first. You put the tzatziki, the tomato, the onion, and then followed by the meat and the French fries. This way you get some of those juices from the tomato and the moisture of the tzatziki onto your pita.
Of your meat, which you waited to slice fresh, right? Do you want your kiss from Papa or not? Fold that up with a generous dollop or two of your tzatziki. Don't be scared to be generous here. Stack on some hot, salty French fries, your tomato slices, which have been salted, your red onion, and optionally to finish things up, you can add some fresh parsley on top for a little pop of green. Now let's taste and see if this is as good for our mouths as it is for our wallets. Look at this baby. Ooh, that's busting.
Oh my goodness!
Look at that, you got the potatoes, the tomatoes, greens, beans, tomatoes, potatoes, pork, yo. Something this beautiful for this price. Bottom is like crispy, but the top is fluffy.
Jesus.
I don't know that I would be able to tell any difference between a butt cheaper version and a normal version. This is kind of like everything you need. And it also shows the beauty and simplicity of Greek cuisine. You don't need a lot of money to make a great Greek.
I agree. Greek cuisine is really simple, but it delivers a lot of flavor.
Dish. An incredible wrap sandwich, whatever you want to call it. We're bringing a representative of Greek culture in today. Pano, step in. This is his moment to shine. Every single day he's told us that he's Greek, like we forgot.
Let's see.
We get it, okay?
You're Greek.
He's so happy.
Emotionally preparing myself
I mean, if I was living in the States and didn't have access to gyros, at some point I would miss it so much too.
because I know how good this is gonna be.
Oh my goodness.
I'm not kidding. I didn't watch you do the seasoning for the pork. In Greece, when they make gyros, they don't do like the lamb and beef that they do in the United States as much. It's not as popular. They use this pork.
See, as I told you, in Greece and in Cyprus we eat mostly pork.
However you seasoned it, it tastes exactly like it's from Greece. The proportions are a little bit different than you'd get in a restaurant in Greece, but the exact same flavor, emphasis on putting the fries in the middle with the tomato, the onions. You hit it on the head.
The Greek sign-off.
We're better than Italians. Just kidding. Italians are great.
I trust his opinion. I mean, even if he's a Greek American, he must be visiting Greece and knows the original flavor. And in all fairness, the gyros looks pretty good to me.
Great. Just Greeks know food a little bit better. Ask Gordon Ramsay, he said it. No, you did. Phenomenal.
I'm not sure if I agree about Greek food is better than Italian, but I'll leave that to you.
Good job.
All right, we got the Greek sign-off. You heard it here, and all for an affordable price. No more god-dang excuses. But you wanna know what else has no excuses? B-roll.
And yeah, Joshua always leaves you with that phenomenal B-roll with his amazing cameras. I appreciate that. It's a nice touch. So, overall, I would say that Joshua's gyros is quite authentic. He has those three minor things that I mentioned earlier in my video. It was easy to follow. It looked relatively easy as a recipe, with the exception of the 3 skewers and the constantly rotating the meat in the oven. But it gives you the experience of gyros, of seeing a big pile of meat in the oven. I don't know. It gives you a bit the visual imagery of gyros, let's say. Yeah. Joshua, well done. I think that you are a remarkable chef. And if you guys don't know him or haven't watched his videos or subscribed to his channel, go ahead and do so. If you like this video, then watch my previous one on the tier list of foods I've had in Croatia. Until the next time, bye!